A lot of people on the phones. Let's intersperse this. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Richard C. Hoagland and Art Bell. Hi. Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. My name is Steve. I'm calling from Montreal, Canada.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Art. I'm very glad to have you back. I discovered you about 10 days before you left, and I was crestfallen. I thought this is like the best thing since sliced bread, and then you disappeared on us. I'm really glad to have you back. I'm a professional translator. I heard your appeal for somebody who could maybe translate the...
Oh, you might well speak French, I guess, eh?
I might well, sir. The report is the signals from EQ Pegasus is divided into three parts. The first is an introductory piece of journalism, giving the outline of the story, what occurred, and so on. The second is a statement from Dr. Paul Such, I guess, and he's panning the whole thing.
He's the study league president in New Jersey.
Yeah, he's been on, I've got the story here in which he says it's virtually set SETI back 100 years, which is a little bit of an exaggeration.
And the third part is the gentleman himself, Richard Dorr, was explaining why he stepped down and didn't conduct the press conference. So I don't know if any of it's of any use to you, but I can do a site translation as we go.
That's it then, huh?
Yeah.
So that's what the French have up. All right, I just wanted to ensure that it was not yet another report of signal reception, and you have told us that.
It is not.
Bless your heart. Figures we'd get that from Montreal. Very good. Richard, here's another fax. You'll like this one or not. First of all, about me, I'm a former counterintelligence agent, police chief, deputy sheriff. For me, based on past experience, Dorr's final statement is a cover story. Disinformation. PSYOPs. Just plain fake. Most likely, Dorr doesn't know this. He is a pawn. What does bother me is his reference to Project 415. The spooks visit him for 2 hours. Rather long meetings. Just tell someone to shut up. Seems more like an investigatory meeting to me. The spooks most likely spoon-fed or force-fed Project 415 to Dorr, so it would be known to the public. He says, in short, intel people meet Dorr and tell him of 415. Dorr tells Project 415. Project 415 gets worldwide broadcast. The project can be referenced by the general public. 415 is believed. People close their eyes.
I think you're onto something, and let me give you a corollary. I went to the website tonight. Steve Bassett called and said I should really read this thing before we went on the air. He kind of agrees with that faxer. He says there's kind of like a wheel within a wheel here. That part of the agenda was to get exposure for 415. Let me tell you what 415 turns out to be. It turns out to be a very complicated, very expensive, very elaborate, satellite-based eavesdropping electronic system to tap 1 billion telephone calls a week in Great Britain alone, and extended to the United States. In fact, the project is UK-USA, sponsored by the National Security Agency. Big Brother is not only watching and listening, but is capable of looking at a lot of traffic it cannot now because it doesn't have the computers or the signal processors or whatever. And it was been totally not on the radar screen until Dorr mentioned it in his web post. If the agency, if we go back to the NSA, we have the constitutionalists and we have the rogue groups, and the rogue groups basically are demanding more and more power and more lack of secrecy. I mean, what has this whole thing with Clinton been about? It's been about you don't have a private life anymore. The assault on you, Art, when you took time off to handle your personal problem. You do not have a right to have a private life, okay?
Right.
So the way you put teeth into it is you eavesdrop everything and everybody. And this project, 415, has the technical capability, if pressed far enough, to literally eavesdrop on every damn telephone call everybody ever makes from now on.
So the 415 reference is absolutely real.
Absolutely real. But let me lay out another scenario.
All right.
Suppose that the Dorr business and the ET signal and all that became a convenient mechanism where the good guys in the agency wanted us to find out about 415 and how overwhelmingly threatening that is as part of this creeping constitutional destruction. And they used the whole Pegasus scenario as an excuse to get the word out on 415. And that's why that NSA logo is up there. It's to keep the story going.
Well, all I know is, and again I'll say this, as a simple little April Fool's fun joke, we put up an FBI logo. Keith did, actually, on our website. And man, the feds were all over us like flies on horse poop. And we had to take that down right away. Is that NSA logo still up there now?
It's still there.
It's still there.
Let me go to my bookmarks and just check.
Let's check with someone else while we're doing that. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Richard C. Hoagland and Art Bell. Hi.
Hi, John.
John, yes? How can we help you?
Yeah, I was checking, like you were mentioning, I was checking whether what he was saying in his article there with the press conference being canceled, whether some of his information was correct. And in an article in the New Statesman of August 12th, 1988, as their cover story, somebody listening, as you already mentioned, it says Project 415, a top-secret new global surveillance system, can tap 1 billion calls in a year in the UK alone.
All right, everybody's confirming this then.
Yeah, no, this is actually linked on a site. I'm looking at it now. So what is Project 415? He's right. It was in the May Daily Telegraph reference. There's a April 1998 reference. There is, let me go down to the bottom of this. The original story appeared in the New Statesman, all right? And there's extensive references. This is a real project.
Right.
And I believe this was dated 12th of August, 1988. You're right. That was during the Bush administration.
Yeah, he also mentions where the people are coming from, like the GCHQ, the Government Communications, and NSA.
Yep.
And in there it also
British,
states...
headquarters for this project.
Yeah, right. It states that this monitoring stations are the Government Communication HQ at Cheltenham and the NSA.
See, one of the problems with the interpretation that a satellite that Dorr, if we take him to be real, tapped into, was a Project 415 eavesdropping satellite. I mean, by definition, if you're eavesdropping, you're not transmitting. You're listening, right?
Yeah, you
and
know,
you're not going to transmit on a transmitter that's falling in frequency by 1 full megahertz per day.
if you were going to be eavesdropping, I'm trying to suddenly in my mind put together a way to imagine a satellite making a transmission on the frequency that we're talking about that is related in some way to an eavesdropping program.
Well, obviously, if you're listening, you've got to transmit the data down to Earth to some central point, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
But you can do that from a geosynchronous point. You don't need to go billions of miles out.
Oh, right. No. Well, I mean, the inference here is that we're looking at geosynchronous satellites and that they just happen to be in the beam of the telescope. The problem with that is that if they're in geosynchronous orbit, there is no relative motion, basically, between the ground station, the antenna, and the satellite. So there's no Doppler shift. And you certainly wouldn't get a frequency change of 1 million hertz between one day and the next.
No, that's absolutely correct. And it wouldn't just be a slamming carrier up there either.
And you wouldn't get correlative data where you put together an amateur in Guernsey, an amateur in Japan, professional team in Australia, and it gives you a nice straight line plot like we have.
All right.
But it is a nice excuse to get the public looking at 415, and I think that those guys are piggybacking on this story to get the word out that, I mean, listening is listening. The other part of this, and we're symbolic now, is if you're flagging attention to a listening program to eavesdrop on Earth, on U.S. citizens, you turn it around, the code here is, yes, we're listening to the signal. In other words, they didn't pick any old satellite, they picked this incredible eavesdropping system. So what does that tell us? We're eavesdropping officially on this signal. Pay attention. With a logo up there still as of 10 seconds ago.
It is up there. Now, that's absolutely astounding. I really almost ought to bring Keith on to tell you what we went through with the FBI and how quickly, by the way, we went through it. And I say again, the NSA, if anything, is spookier and meaner than the FBI. I don't mean that in any derogatory manner for the FBI, but I mean, they're pretty bad. They're a pretty bad group. So, hold on, Richard. We'll get back to you in a moment. Now, the story of what happened when we just played a simple little fun April Fool's joke is perhaps relevant to what's going on right now and still going on this GeoCities site. This is really interesting. Whatever it is, it's interesting. From the high desert, this is Coast to Coast AM.